Thank you everyone for joining us in this webinar tonight. We're going to take a deep dive into the financial side of lawn and landscape marketing strategy, right, for 2022. And I'm here with Carla, the other co-founder of Cycle CPA, and tonight we have Tony Ricketts from Lawnline Marketing joining us. And at Lawnline Marketing, they handle website design, search engine optimization, advertising, social media marketing, recruiting services, and Tony is the founder and the CEO. So thank you for joining us tonight, Tony.
Hey Joe, thanks for having me on here. I appreciate it.
All right, awesome. So we'll get right into it here, guys. And I think it's important to first understand that marketing, although it does fall within your profit and loss statement, and it is technically an expense. I think that there are aspects of it that actually mirror more towards a investment, right? And thinking in terms of it being an investment, right, where maybe it's not just something that there's this fixed cost, right, and you're getting that fixed amount of revenue, but you're actually looking at this transaction in terms of reaping benefits in the long term. And there's even terms out there now called digital real estate, where people are actually creating websites with that sole purpose of just looking to attract traffic and business in, and it's this digital asset. Tony, is this something that you've seen within your line of work?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you definitely have to look at your marketing as an investment. I mean, you can't look at it as an expense. I mean, it's not a digital real estate investment, so to speak, but it's investing, into your business. And when done properly and utilized, it's going to return for you better than what any other investment will be able to return for you. It's sustainable. It's long term. You're building something that you own. You're not buying a stock and relying on that company to grow and increase their value. You're investing it into yourself. And for somebody that invests in heavily marketing myself, the money that I put into my own company's marketing and the growth that we see from it, there's nothing that would compare. There's no physical real estate. There's no stock that I can buy that can return my investment better than marketing my own company can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take over here on this one. This is actually one of our slides here, where this is breaking down some of the different marketing options that we commonly see in the lawn landscape space. So while I'm getting ready to go through this, if you guys don't mind, put in the chat, put what your main focus is. Are you guys a landscape company? Are you focused on lawn maintenance, turf care? Type in the chat so that I can see it come in while I'm talking about this, where you guys are focused in mostly as far as your service region. There's a couple of things on here that you're going to see. This chart is breaking down the different marketing options, what the cost should look like annually to be able to run in those marketing programs, the time that you should take to receive a return on that investment, and what that return on investment should look like, what kind of expectations. And then finally, that last column there is going to show you what the DIY ability is. How easily can you do this yourself? So a lot of you have definitely done probably the second and the third one here, maybe even the first one, direct mail, door hangers, door to door. Those are ones that people like to use. The time to ROI is very short on them. You can start putting out your door hangers and getting calls right away. But there's other ways that as you continue to grow and become a bigger and bigger company, it should be noted real quick that, we work primarily with $1 million plus companies up into the $20 million a year range. So as you grow into those, you tend to invest more and more into the digital side. So looking at the digital side here, you can see Google LSA or Google guarantees. You can see Google and Microsoft ads, Facebook, Instagram ads, website SEO, local SEO, social, email, and SMS. These are all digital. Now, what I typically recommend when we get to this place is to create a marketing plan that balances both the costs, the return on the investment. You want to do some long-term, but you also want to do some short-term. This is where I like to use the analogy of starting a fire, right? So there are certain things that you can use that's going to get you quick results. Imagine starting a fire with gasoline, right? Those are going to be things like your paid ads, your Google LSA, your Google Microsoft ads, and your Facebook ads. You're going to get results right away, but just like the fuel in your fire, if you don't keep putting money into that engine, it's going to burn out. To create a sustainable fire, you need to get your wood to burn. And that's where the SEO comes into play. SEO should be everybody's long-term game plan. That's your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And the reason I say that is because you can put all of these paid advertising methods together that you see right here on this chart, and added together, they won't even do half of what organic SEO can do for you. So the problem with the organic SEO, though, is if you look at website SEO, the annual cost is high and the time to return on investment is low. But those results that comes out of it is just amazing. So you want to keep always working on that. But in the short term, have some other mechanisms running, like the Google LSA ads, for example. If you're unfamiliar with those are referred to as local service ads. It's a program where you get your background check looked at by Google. They check out your insurance, your license, and once they approve you, you can apply for a marketing program that you only pay for phone calls. So you're no longer paying for clicks. And the thing about it is these costs per calls, it's cheap. They start around $10, $12 in non-competitive markets. And the bigger your competitive market is and the more players that are in there, you're looking up to the max I think I've seen in general lawn care is like $25 a call. So you should be converting at least 50% of those calls at a minimum. We see customers doing into 60% and even a few up to 70%. That means that you're paying at max, $50 to acquire that customer. And that customer acquisition cost is great. So you can use that as your fuel to build up your marketing while you've got to generate instant dollars to pay for the SEO that you would need to create a sustainable lead generation engine. And the more that you work on your SEO and the longer that it's going and the more that it builds up, you'll see it start to surpass what your paid dollars can do for you. And that in itself, you can cut off all your paid and just focus on organic going out, which is going to make your costs in the single digits. So your cost per lead is less than $10 once you have it up and running. So this chart just kind of breaks down what these things look like, how much they cost, when you should get a result on a return on your investment. And I'm sure Joe and Carla here can get anybody a copy of it that would like to take a copy.
Absolutely, yeah. Everyone's going to get the recording. And now, Tony, do you recommend for a company to implement all of these strategies? Some of them. What do you recommend?
No. Some things can be good, right? So, for example, we typically recommend employing everything from the Google LSAs down. Now, the email and SMS is a little bit different. That one is meant to maximize your customer's lifetime value, the LTV, because the more you can get out of your customers, then the more revenue you can do without having such big customer acquisition costs. So that should be like monthly email marketing to your customer base, upselling them various services. So like if you're in maintenance, you should be sending emails out every month. And there's various strategies that you can use to get to be more effective, but you should be upselling things like spring cleanup. You should be upselling fert and weed programs to your mowing customers. If you're in fert and weed, you should be upselling preventative grub in May and June. Everybody should be upselling aeration overseeding. You can easily upsell trimming and mulching services, fall cleanups, leaf removals, Christmas light hanging. These are all great services that you can easily upsell to your customer base and increase that revenue. So I recommend doing everything from Google LSA down. That's all digital stuff. But the other things have their place. Door-to-door, door hangers, and direct mail, I would recommend for extreme focus. So if you have a particular neighborhood that you want to break into, going door to door, putting door hangers on there and direct mailing them and just hammering that on top of all the digital stuff can really make an impact. But I wouldn't recommend necessarily saying go put out door hangers one time, 500 of them, and expect great results, right? That's not typically how those work.
Thanks, Tony. No, that's, this is great detail for a game plan here. And no, that's awesome stuff. And I think it's also important to understand that there are companies that are in different stages. And I know this is even something Tony's going to go further into here, but it's, some companies may be looking to grow at a faster rate, and that's going to require more marketing spend than, a company that is not looking to grow, right? And it's good to look at those in two separate views there. And this is an example. It's a simplified view at, in scenario one, you can see that this company, they are, so they started the year with 200 contracts, lost 35, gained 80, and you can see that they had a net change of a positive 45 contracts, which translated into an additional 225,000, right? And then versus in scenario two, right, this company is literally just gaining contracts just so they can remain at the same revenue level. So it's important to understand and know this number for your company. So even if you're not looking to grow in size, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should stop marketing as well.
All right, I'll go ahead and take over here, Joe. So this is a chart about what to spend, meaning what should you set your marketing budget to? Now, keep in mind, this number is showing overall marketing. This is not referring to just digital marketing. So to me, marketing is all your digital stuff and internet stuff. It's your truck wraps, it's your lawn signs. These are all your marketing costs and expenses, even things down to your pins and, if you send out hats or whatever, all of that is all marketing costs. So what chart I have here is based on our data. That's what we see, the companies that we work with, what they're spending. And some of it's been adjusted, like for the ones that run the 100K based on our other data that we have here. So basically what it's doing is showing you where you are, that first column in revenue, and find whatever your desired growth rate is. Do you want steady growth that's nice and I wouldn't say easy, but easier to keep up with, faster growth or extreme growth, depending on what your goals are and what you want to do with your business. So a general rule of thumb here is companies that are under 2 million, we usually see them spending about 5% of their top line revenue on marketing. So if they're doing $1 million and they're spending $50,000 on their marketing. If they're in the 2 to 5 million, they're at 3 to 4% and so forth. You can see that there. So there are times when you can increase that budget, and there are times when you should decrease the budget. Even the numbers that you see there were steady, faster, and extreme. Like for example, at $1 million being 50,000. If you have high profit margin services, let's say for example, you're primarily a fur, weed, and pest company, and you're focusing on the chemical applications, you're going to have higher margins than what somebody is that may be focusing on, let's say, just the lawn maintenance portion. So if you're at $1 million and you're at a high maintenance services high margin service, then your 50,000 could easily be 60 or 70,000 because you have the margins to be able to afford to increase your budget. So the higher profit services, if you're seeking faster growth, then obviously you'll want to increase your budget and spend more. Also, you want to add budget when you're bringing in new services. So if I've seen this many times where a maintenance company is bringing on fur and weed services, and to break into that, you want to spend some money. That way you're able to fill up a text route. So you're going to need to bring on, at least even 100, 200 accounts just to keep the guy busy. Or if you're trying to break into new areas, right? You have new suburbs you want to get into, you're going to have to spend money to get into those places. But you should also decrease your budget at times when your margins are small, right? If you run a business where your margins are less than 10%, then this may not be the right numbers for your business due to the low profit margins. Also, if you don't want to grow fast, right? If you want to grow nice and slow, then don't spend a ton of money in marketing. Just make sure you don't go the other way. And finally, if you don't have the capacity, right? It's hard to spend money in dollars for marketing and generate calls when you can't service that business. That's actually one of the major issues and number one problems that you're going to face as you continue to scale into multiple 7 and 8 figure lawn and landscape companies. Is the recruiting right now is a real problem and real issue, and being able to take on the capacity of what you can actually service is hard to grow nowadays. So that in itself is a whole nother conversation and budget. But these are some of the numbers and data that we see though from our clients and our recommendations.
Nice. And no, this is a great visual. And so we see that it's for a company looking to stay at the current revenue size versus a company even looking at extreme growth. Now, we see that there's the differences in amounts that they're going to spend. Is there differences also in the type of marketing and advertising as well, or is it?
Absolutely. So depending on what they're going after. So if you are let's say a design build company, then that really changes a lot of your strategy and how much you want to invest in certain things. Like, so for example, if you're a design build company that's doing project work, you're going to want to invest a whole lot more into the nurturing and remarketing side of your advertising dollars. Whereas if you're a maintenance or a fert and weed company, you're not going to spend as much money on the nurturing and remarketing side because those are fast sales processes. Also, you're going to want to invest in more media and photography and project case studies and things like that as a design build company that a lawn care or a lawn maintenance company, typically wouldn't have. So there's definitely changes. The things that you would do would still be a lot of the same, meaning the platforms. You would still use Google ads, you still use Facebook ads, you still use SEO, but how you would use those and where funds would be allocated is what would really change.
Gotcha. No, that's fantastic. And I would imagine that this takes definitely a lot of monitoring throughout the year, right? And different adjustments, right? Because in business and in life, things just happen, right? So I guess, if you can kind of give us an overview about that.
Absolutely. So that's one thing we always tell our customers: no matter how much we plan and forecast, it will never, ever come out to exactly what we choose. No, I don't think even one time it ever has. So you have to be ready to change on the fly. This is, a guide to follow, a loose guide of what we're going to do. But what we're actually really going to do is going to be told to us through the data and metrics that we collect, right? And the actions that happen. I can remember, I don't think it was last year, I think it was the year before. That would have been, was that 2020? I think it was spring 2020. There were people in April or May, they were still doing snow services in April and May. So like the weather even is a big impact on how you would have to change your marketing budgets around. So here's some of the ways that you would adjust your budget real time, month to month, as you're going throughout the year. So when you're looking at these boxes, anything that's green is when you would go up, red is when you would go down in your monthly budget. So obviously you would go up or down based on your real-time results. And what that's meaning is really looking at your ROI. Let's say, for example, you put out ads on Google and it's just really killing it. I mean, you're getting a cost per lead lower than you anticipated. You're closing them at a higher rate than you anticipated. I mean, it's just a money machine for you right now. That means you put more money into it, right? Because it's going well as long as you have the capacity for it. Otherwise, if it's going the other way, you can turn it down. You would want to turn up your monthly advertising budget or marketing budget if you underspent previous months. So like I had just spoke about, when we have these crazy weather patterns, it's going to impact how many people are looking for services. There can be rushes and there can be famine, right? So when you underspend or overspend a month, you can adjust the following months up or down to ensure that you're still on track for whatever the original marketing budget and plan was that you originally set. Weather events, as I was just kind of mentioning there, weather events can have a big impact. Think of services like drainage. Anybody here do drainage services? When it really starts raining, stuff starts pooling up in people's yards. That's when the calls for the drainage come rolling in. So based on weather events, if you're a company that makes a lot of money in handling drainage issues and there's a ton of rain coming in, now might be the time to turn up the dial a little bit on your drainage paid advertising dollars. Or it can go the other way too, right? If it's services that aren't in high demand right now due to the weather, then turn it down. Or if you're at maximum capacity, that's always bring it down. No reason to waste money when you can't service the business. Shuffle those dollars over your recruiting budget, right? Recruiting, for me, actually, believe it or not, is about the same as my marketing budget. I spend the same amount of money really in marketing that I do in recruiting. So recruiting is just a big portion, and you got to bring them both up together. Economic scares. This one a lot of people don't think about properly. We saw this when COVID hit. I think it was 2019 or 2020 when COVID first came out and everywhere shut down. One thing you have to remember, especially when it comes to digital marketing, is that these platforms are they're auction style. So the more people that's in them, the more expensive they become. The less people that's in them, the less expensive they become. Well, the companies that we work for are older established companies. So when everybody started pulling their marketing dollars down because they were worried about what was going to happen and places getting shut down and businesses can't work, the cost per lead or cost per click on these platforms, it plummeted. It got super cheap. What guys were paying for $10, $12, they were getting them for $5 and $6. It was super cheap and still converting just as high. And what was great is we saw contact rates soar over 90%. During COVID, people were home answering their phone. So most of our companies grew through COVID. Then new platforms. When new platforms come out, they often come with credit offers. This is the last thing there. Spend some money with them. So TikTok, for example, TikTok's a brand new, I would say it's a brand new platform, but their marketing is starting to become new and they're offering credits and it's a new platform. And with new platforms, you can often advertise super cheap. So you can reach a lot of people for not a lot of money. Test the waters, beat down a path that hadn't been beaten down before, and you might find a little bit of treasure on the way. So
awesome, Tony. And I think it's interesting how you had mentioned you even spend literally the same amount on recruiting that you do on advertising. I think putting that focus into recruiting is crucial, because a lot of people are running into issues with recruiting, but are they treating it like it is a problem, and are they allocating resources and attention to it? So I think that's a great point there.
Absolutely, that can become your bottleneck in your entire. It can shut down everything, shut down your marketing, shut down your business, shut down your reputation. All of that can flow on your recruiting. That's why it's so important. I mean, it's sickening the amount of money that we invest in finding people.
Absolutely. And the traditional view at, return on investment, looking at, the total sales that your company is going to grow minus your marketing costs, over your marketing costs, right? And here's an example, right? And it's based off of sales, right? Your sales growth or your revenue growth. And this is typically how, a lot of people view marketing and the return, based off of it. And I think kind of going off of, what we were originally discussing in how, marketing should be seen really more as an investment, right? We, as businesses, you invest in the equipment, vehicles, and, assets and, different things like that. And, even when you look at your equity within your business, right, and the return that you're getting on that equity, I think it's interesting that is, you're basing that off of your net income, right? So you're basically holding yourself accountable for not only the sales growth, right, and the healthy sales number, but ultimately the efficiencies that are needed throughout the business to then result in that net profit, right? And that's what your equity is measured against. So I think that that's how we should view the marketing investment as. So and then also understanding that there's certain items, and this pertains more to a company looking to grow, even aggressively, or grow and not really maintain, where where they are, they're putting even more of that investment into the business, right? Versus other companies that are not, right? And viewing that more, on the profit and loss, and almost looking at it as growth capital, right? Or that investment that is needed to reach that next step.
Yeah, a lot of the companies or business owners are, like Joe said, are focused on top line revenue growth, but you more want to look at gross profit growth and net income growth. And when we are walking our clients through their financials, and maybe they invested a lot of money into advertising, which is great, and then they see a revenue increase of 50% or whatever it was, you want to make sure that the gross profit is at the same growth rate as well, and it's not falling behind, and you're not growing, and then you're not having the processes and policies in place to grow, and then gross profit is actually growing at a lower rate than your revenue. And if you're not closely monitoring that, then you can run into issues in the future. So that's one little tip, is just when you're viewing your profit and loss, is look at your rate of growth for top line, gross profit, and then net income. Those should be closely aligned with each other.
Awesome. And as we were discussing, there's that certain marketing spend or investment that's needed for a company to stay at the current revenue size. And these are two, example of two companies. Both, fortunately, grew in size when it came to revenue, right? They went from $1 million to 1.5 million. Had similar investments in other parts of the company. But Company A, they actually invested less in marketing to get to that same revenue mark that Company B did, and Company B had to spend twice the amount, right? And looking at this, you may think, wow, I'd rather be Company A here. I think that's based off of this information. This is how a lot of people measure marketing, but I think it's as we mentioned before, maybe we should look at it in a different way, and this isn't necessarily a bad way to look at it, right? But maybe there's another way to evaluate that marketing investment, to ensure that, it's taking into account all the different aspects, including efficiencies and how you're operating the business.
Yeah. Because what happens is, if you're not looking at your gross profit growth and net income growth, then you kind of have that gas pedal. You're going to stop and go. I'm going to invest in marketing. I'm going to pull back because I need to spend some months on, implementing efficiencies and overseeing other parts of the business and so on. But you want to keep this a constant throughout the life of the business. So,
absolutely. And you can see here, here's Company A and Company B again. And you can see, even though Company B spent double the amount in marketing, right, past that amount that they both needed to maintain their current revenue size, Company B actually spent $50,000, right, where Company A spent an additional $25,000. They got to that same revenue figure of 1.5 million in 2021. But now we look at Company B, right? And Company B was actually able to operate with a higher gross margin, right? So their gross margin was 43% versus Company A, because you can see more specifically that they were more efficient with their direct labor. And Company B also had lower overhead, right, as a percentage to revenue, due to a couple of those factors, including some of the administrative and overhead labor. And ultimately, leading to, a higher percentage of net income for company B. So, you can see how, the marketing investment to drive revenue is great, but there's other factors that as a CEO or as a manager, you should be taking into account to evaluate some of those.
Right. And Joe, one thing I'll jump in here with on the marketing side to help better explain here is that with marketing that's targeted properly, you can charge a little bit more of a premium even, but you get better customers. You don't have to take everybody, right? So you were able to service and generate the same revenue with less resources put out to service that business. So you're able to get a little bit more for your services, even a couple of dollars more per visit or whatever it may be, because you were more targeted on people who are willing, able, and ready to pay a little bit more for a higher quality of service, right? And it's all about how you target and get in front of the right audience, right? If you get in front of a lot of people that are looking for the very cheapest price, that's looking for the local owner operator that may or may not be fully licensed, able to operate, that's not your ideal customer, right? And spending time and resources with that customer is not going to be sufficient. That's going to be company A in this scenario. Whereas if you direct your resources towards a better quality customer, then you can spend less resources, less customers, but make the same or more revenue, but with much better margins.
That's a great point, Tony. Thanks for that. Because, and then I think it becomes interesting because it's not only up to how efficiently you can operate, but it's also, like you mentioned, Tony, all right, what are the quality of these, jobs that I'm getting, because you can operate as efficiently as possible and, stuff like that, but your salesperson or your marketing team may not be actually targeting those correct jobs. So thanks.
Yeah, marketing can definitely save your sales team a ton of time, right? If you're out chasing tire kickers and doing site visits for people that have unrealistic expectations, then that's going to be a very inefficient way for your sales team to operate versus your marketing already naturally pre-qualifying and nurturing these people. Your sales team is going to be dealing with people that are more serious, ready to buy, and far less time wasters.
Great. And so here you can see company B, and now for 2022, they want to set a goal, right? But instead of basing it more off of revenue, it's important to, even when you think back at, return on equity, right? Or return on, what you feel as a business owner your time is worth when it comes to running a business like a landscaping business. You don't want to get the same return that you get in the stock market or some real estate investments. You want to be able to get a good return on the money that you're investing into your company. Mm-hmm. And not counting the funds that are needed to maintain operations and maintain the revenue level, but with that additional $80,000 that you're looking to spend in marketing to maybe grow aggressively in 2022, really you want to shoot for at least a 50% return, when it comes to your net income, right? So if you're looking to invest 80,000, that should translate to at least 40,000. And there's companies that are doing 100, 200, 300% return, right? But you want to make sure that you're hitting at least the 50% because, companies that grow fast, you shouldn't be sacrificing as much in net profits, and I think this is something that a lot of companies, they think that if they're growing at a fast rate, that they may be in the negative when it comes to net income or, different things like that. But you always want to be looking at that number, and that's what's going to enable you to then grow faster the next year because you can invest more funds and you have more room and more margin to play with as well. So, do you have anything to add, Tony?
No, I think you hit the nail there. So no, I think I'm good there.
Awesome. And this is, another simplified, table here where sometimes it's nice to just break it down based off of what you or maybe your team understand more in depth. If the total marketing costs and the total amount that it may take per each job to acquire that new job, how much net profit per job do you actually have to make? So sometimes it works, and there's different ways to break it out like this, but break it out per job or per customer, and figure out what are those different KPIs that I should be hitting as well.
Absolutely. And I also add in, you got to know your numbers for one. Obviously, as you grow, knowing your numbers is far more important. But that tells you really where your customer acquisition costs can be as well, right? Because if you've got a customer, you got to understand the lifetime value of them. That's one thing that we definitely talk about, especially if you're in the recurring side of the business. Think about what is your customer's annual regular revenue for one customer, and how many years does that person on average stay with you, is going to give you the lifetime value of that customer. Then think about all the upsells you're missing from that customer and add those on too, because you can easily grab that low hanging fruit. And let's say, for example, just for easy math, your customer generates an average of $1,000 a year. You keep an average of 5 years, that customer is worth $5,000, right? With whatever your net operating margins are, I like to look at net. So looking at your net margins, let's say you're operating at, even 10 or 15%, let's go 10% for easy math, right? You're going to make a total of $500 on that customer net. So your cost to acquire that customer, I would say, needs to be down like the $100 range, right? It needs to be lower than that, so that you have a good return on that investment. The 50% minimum you're talking about is nice. That's net afterwards returning 50%. Yeah. But as you mentioned, you can easily go many multiples.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also important to understand like that 50%, is just, a fraction of like the revenue growth. So if you look at it in terms of revenue, it'll be a lot higher multiple, but no, that's great, Tony. As Carla touched on briefly before, sometimes it's good to monitor your trends. And, even Tony touched on, there's always adjustments that have to be made, right? And I think that graphic that Tony had shared earlier is a great way to keep tabs on, all right, if this goes down, I should increase my spend, or, if, God forbid, if another COVID, happens, or crisis, just knowing that as these different things come up, you have to make different moves, and knowing your numbers is important. And we recommend, at Cycle CPA, we recommend, having the monthly reports, right? So that you know exactly what's going on. You can build out different trends. So looking at this graph here, you see in the gray that your advertising spend is slightly creeping up throughout the year, right? But your net income is staying relatively constant. So obviously there's other factors that play into your net income, and you should be looking at other trends, because it may be other issues. But this kind of highlights that maybe we should hold off on advertising until we can get a better handle on some of the other factors that affect the business and the profitability as well. And this is something I know even that Tony had touched on briefly, but being able to market it opens you up to take quality clients, right? Instead of being in a position where I guess you're kind of worrying, where your next client's going to come from, because you maybe rely too much on word of mouth, or you don't have a solid process in place for it. Marketing and putting investment into marketing allows you to take advantage of more of those high profit opportunities. Even this time of year, you can increase your pricing more confidently, because you know that if you increase pricing 10% this year and you lose 5 or 10% of your customer base, you know you can get them right back, right, at that higher profit level. And it's better to be in that position. You don't want to be in that position where you're scared to increase pricing, especially this time of year.
One thing I'll add to that too is I actually recommend doing a price increase, a little small price increase every year. It's easier if your customers see a very small amount every year versus a larger jump every 5 years or every 7 years, or waiting until you have to absolutely do it. And one thing that you'll see if you don't do this already is, one, you rarely lose the customers due to the price increase. You'll lose a few, sure, but the thing is in almost all instances you retain plenty more, to where you are using fewer resources because you lost those customers, but your revenue has actually, and your margins have actually increased.
Yeah.
Because the cost difference is offsetting what you lost from those customers plus some, right? So now you're making even more money and using less resources, and freed up some of your resources to go get better paying customers. Absolutely.
No, that's a super important point. And just a quick note here. Just understand, if you're in the position where you are still handling the marketing yourself, make sure that you're paying yourself a salary for it, right? Because eventually you're going to want to hand it off to someone, to either a professional or whatever you decide to do. You want to make sure that you're leaving enough margin within your company to pay someone to operate that part.
Yeah.
And just from what we've seen with our clients, and looking at the financial side, typically it's what we've seen. Companies that are companies that grow and are able to consistently grow, they don't have drastic increases. They're able to operate in a way where it's these steady increases. Even if it's fast growth, it isn't something where it's drastic in comparison to what they've been doing, right? They've been able to build up to it, because as Tony mentioned before, if your recruiting is not where it should be, you're basically just going to advertise up to that bottleneck, and it's just going to increase your speed there. And then you're going to be in a position where you may have to turn off advertising or change your whole entire process of what you have set. Also, even looking at some of these large increases in your marketing spend or your marketing efforts or advertising, sales, that same focus has to be put into the other aspects of the business that are going to be affected by it. Do you have enough direct labor? Do you have the equipment? Those are all things that you have to know, because that's why you see a lot of companies increase fast in revenue, but their net profit doesn't get better at all, right? It's because they're not doing it efficiently. So put the same attention that you do towards advertising and marketing into making sure that you're actually returning a net profit on those dollars as well.
Yeah. One thing I'll also add too is market your company. We call it in our company called the cultural positioning. If you ever go do a search for my company, Lawnline Marketing, you'll see we actually market us and who we are and try to attract digital marketing experts to our agency more than we push our services. It's all about who we are. Like if you go look at our Facebook feed, you'll see slews of photos of the fun we have and the videos of us playing in the back and my dog in the office and all the crap that we do. I mean, we do some wild stuff in there, and we record it all, right? And we put it out there because it attracts people to want to come work at our agency. Actually, the majority of our staff We're well over 20 staff, and we have almost, I think there's only like 4 or 5 that were local. Everybody else relocated down to Tampa to take this job at our agency. So if you basically want to position yourself as the company to work for, if anybody's serious about working in this space, right? So if you're serious about working in lawn care or landscaping, that your company is the one to work for because of the great culture. So spend money promoting and marketing who you are, what you do for your staff, how you get involved in the community, and who you are as a company. That goes a long way in recruiting people in the community around your business.
Wow. No, I think that's a super interesting point, because one may think, and even probably when people approach you, Tony, that there's this, standard way, I want to acquire this many clients, and what do I have to do to get there? But, I think it's interesting how you mentioned some of those strategies, when it comes to advertising for clients, you're actually also advertising for employees too, right? Because you're making a company that not only you're selling the customer, but you're also selling employees at the same time. So
absolutely, and giving that inside look into your business of who you are actually makes customers trust you more. They want to hire you because they feel like they know you. Like if you go, like I said, with our marketing and our social media and all of that, you can see who the people are in our company. You can get our personalities even by watching our videos and things like that. You feel like you almost know us, and you're going to feel a lot more comfortable hiring, say, my agency than another agency where they've got the picture of the girl on the homepage with the headset coming off her ear to her mouth, right? That everybody has, because you feel like you know the company, right? So that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, no, awesome. I think that like that personalization and that human feel, I think a lot of people are talking about the different things in the digital marketing and stuff like that, but how do you set yourself apart? So I think those are awesome, and it's practical guidance that people can take away here. This is a common question we get, whether people are looking to purchase a small book of clients, or whatever your strategy is here. But I think it's important to understand that even if you do acquire a business, the ultimate strategy is to be able to grow the value of that business that you are acquiring, right? And there's a lot to be said, as I mentioned before, for a company that is growing at a steady rate, maintaining efficiencies, hiring employees one at a time, right? That match the culture. Just as Tony was touching on, the focus on recruiting. And I think that definitely goes a long way. And there's different considerations, when it comes to recurring work, right, versus one-time jobs, right? And if you're looking at it from the perspective of, through the financial perspective, you can look at, profit, cash flow, the cost of acquiring the customer, lifetime value. There's those different aspects that you should be considering, right? For a recurring contract. Yeah, you might not get all that revenue and that profit, in the first year, but it may be exponentially more, throughout the lifetime value of the client. Tony, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, so I guess it really depends on, it's situational on whether I prefer the recurring versus the one-time stuff. And really to your expertise, right? If you run a landscaping company, then the one-time jobs are obviously going to be more of your wheelhouse. You're probably going to be able to be more efficient, more profitable with them than, say, a company who specializes in recurring maintenance and is taking on a couple of one-time jobs here and there. I think it's going to apply to the individual company. Me personally, I prefer, just in general, not necessarily speaking lawn or landscape, but in general business, I prefer a recurring revenue model. And that can be worked in various ways, even for people who do focus on one-time projects. But oftentimes, if you don't have a focus with recurring revenue, it's not a good use of your resources to try and pivot to be able to have a recurring focus. But I like the security that recurring revenue brings. But a lot of times, though, too, recurring revenue is a volume game, whereas project work is often not. Project work, you can, be more choosy and take fewer projects. Whereas with the recurring revenue, you need a whole lot more people. But it's a different set of obstacles, different sets of mountains you'll have to climb, and different ways you have to scale. So it really comes down to, what do you know best, and where are you gonna really, really shine? But I tend to lean more towards the reoccurring side, just because I like that business model in general. I mean, that's how we operate. So
nice.
Yeah.
And I know you had mentioned briefly, Tony, upselling, right? And that's something we see. Some of our most profitable clients, they are very good with upselling. Can you walk us through maybe any clients that you work with, or any strategies that you recommend for that? So even for companies that do have that solid recurring, let's say, maintenance work,
right.
How could they improve maybe some of those, I guess you consider one-time jobs or upsells for, some of those clients.
Right. Yeah. So I'll walk you through. I'll tell you how we do it on. There's many ways to skin a cat, right? And what we've found to be most effective is how we do it in our elite program, and I'll kind of walk you through how that process works. And you don't have to hire us to employ this. You can go put tools together that are available online and employ something similar on your own. But anyways, we like to put together upsell campaigns. Now, we usually do a handful of these a year, 4 or 5 of them, and the rest of the months are just monthly email upsells. So let's start with the monthly email upsells first real quick. That's going to be a plain text email. We take away all graphics, strip out all logos, and we write an email to the customer, and we make it look like we're actually looking at their message, or at their account. So we may send an email that goes something like this: "Hi, Mrs. Jones. This is Tony from Lawn Service Company. I was just looking over your account, and I noticed that you don't have fertilizer and weed control on your mowing program. I just want to let you know you need it because of X, Y, and Z. If you're interested, please click on this link to let us know that you would like a quote." We set up an automated trigger link. When they click that, it lets us know that she's interested. We can go pull the customer information from our Service Autopilot or Real Green or Aspire, whatever program we're using, measure out the lawn, send out the proposal, blah, blah. That's the easiest way, right? And the plain text part of it makes it look like you actually took the time to look at her account, write up this email to her, and they feel obligated to respond. The more advanced way that we do it is we mix in SMS and voicemail drops. So you can find third-party companies out there where you can sign up for SMS systems and voicemail blasts. But basically, we would have our clients, which is the lawn care company, record a voicemail, letting them know, if we use the same scenario, "Hey, we were just looking over your account, so you didn't have the fertilizer weed control program, yada, yada, yada." But in there, they'll say, "I'm going to go ahead and shoot you over a text message and shoot you an email as well, so you have it in both places." A couple minutes later, the text message goes out to them, an email goes out to them, all with trigger links to be able to click it and fire it off and let people know that you're interested, and then they can respond back. And by the way, if you don't know, a voicemail drop is when you get a voicemail on your phone and it never rings. So that's what a voicemail drop is. So they just see a voicemail appear on their phone. And then we stage this with timing. This is especially important for services like aeration over seeding that have a very small window of time. So we'll start pushing it in like August. 2 weeks later, if they didn't say no, they're not interested, another SMS or email would go out to them saying, "Hey, Mrs. Jones, just following up on my message from 2 weeks ago. If you'd like a quote, click on this link. Otherwise, we're still accepting requests for another 3 weeks," or whatever it may be. And then send a final call at the end. "This is your last chance for this year to be able to get aeration over seeding services. Here's why you have to do it now. You can't do it any other time, blah, blah, blah." And when you have a multi-touch campaign like that, spread out with a deadline or a FOMO, fear of missing out, that tends to result in much better feedback where people are asking for quotes.
Awesome. No,
Yeah.
thank you, Tony. That's super valuable for, people, because, like I said, I think upselling is, there's not enough people taking advantage of that. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we always encourage our clients to have upsells separated as an income line item in their profit and loss statement, just because you want to be able to track that, monitor it closely month over month.
yeah, and be able to look at the trends and, use it as another KPI to keep track of there.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anybody has any questions in regard to anything that we went over, feel free to use the chat. We have a couple of minutes here. And just for anyone who may not know, we do have a Facebook group, Cycle CPA, Joe and I. It's called Landscaping Accountant, and we post bookkeeping tips and financial tips on there every day. And it's a nice community to be part of. And, so feel free to join. I'll leave the comment here, but Joe, I think you have a question there that you wanted to answer.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through here. Let's see. All right. So William said, with my company offering so many different services, lawn care, all but lawn care, how do we know what to really invest in with marketing? He says that I guess he makes his most money in grading, drainage, irrigation, landscape design. How do we know when to push for stuff like that? Would it be wise to push all through different marketing ads and sandwich them all together and pray for the best?
You want to answer that, or you want me to take it?
No,
yeah, go ahead.
That's all you, Tony.
Right. So with this, we have a big calendar that shows when is the good time and best time throughout the year to market different services. Now, some of them, like your drainage and grading, a lot of those are going to be weather dependent, right? So the more it's raining in the springtime, you're going to see a lot more of the drainage calls coming in. Irrigation, really depending on what you're looking for, right? Startups and winterizing, obviously we all know that those are going to be dependent on the weather in those seasons. But all of these you can pull data for. So Google actually has a tool called the keyword search tool or something like that. I can't remember that it's off the top of my head, but it's their keyword tool. And you can type in the keyword and it's going to give you a breakdown. It usually goes up to 4 or 5 years of how often those search terms are searched every month. And it'll give you a nice chart and graph and all that and break it down for you. So you can see exactly on mobile and desktop, put in your geographic service area, and it'll show you how often those keywords are searched. That's when you're going to want to put money towards those paid ads. Now, when it comes to things like organic marketing, SEO, and generating content around those services, you can do that year round anytime, because that's everlasting content or evergreen content that is going to help you generate a sustainable lead system into the future. So that can be done anytime. But paid ads, you can run reports on Google that'll tell you exactly when you should be spending money. Now, when to know how much to invest. So you've got your percentages, right? There's also another way you can look at coming up with your marketing budget, and that is relating it to your capacity, right? If you don't have a opportunity to grow capacity like crazy, then you're going to have limited capacity, and you should know what that is. And then you can base your budget around your capacity. So for example, if you know the rough customer acquisition cost, let's say is $100, and you know that you can take on another 100 accounts, then that means that you can spend $10,000 in your marketing budget, because you can take on 100 accounts. It costs you $100 to get those accounts. That's $10,000. So that's another way that you can look at coming up with your marketing budget, is to look at what your capacity is and multiply that by your average customer acquisition cost. And that will give you a number, a budget that you can set before you at least have to increase your capacity.
Nice.
That answers the question.
Yeah. And Tony, when you say capacity, going up to that point, that's, how much can your company handle? Is that what you're?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How much business can you take on? Which will be a combination of staff, of equipment, of space, right? In my case, I got to have an office, so like space and all of that. So there's various things that play into that. But yeah, that's what I mean by capacity.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, people are asking if we will send out a video link. We'll send that out to everybody in an email, just in case you missed something. But yeah, it was so nice having you on, Tony. Thank you for joining us again here. And again, we're doing anything from bookkeeping all the way to CFO services. Feel free to reach out to Tony here. I know he does great stuff when it comes to the marketing and advertising. It's an exciting time this year to invest into that. So yeah, thank you again, Tony.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, Carla and Joe. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
No problem. Bye.
Have a good one, guys.